And it's a very different game because when I reflect on it, as a woman, as a lady, we are told energetically not to open our mouth and not to be heard. Women are not supposed to speak very loud. The voice cannot be heard by men. Patience. This is unconsciously, subconsciously in my blood.
Yes.
Ancestral in my blood.
I was just going to say ancestral. Okay. Hello. Welcome, everybody. This is Sharon Land, and we are at my YouTube channel, and I'm so excited because we are continuing the conversation with people all over the world who are thought leaders, who are change makers, and my guest today is no exception. And we're continuing to talk about surviving to thriving and what that means and what that looks like to each individual, as well as what they feel that looks like to the collective and to the communities that they are in and the communities that they serve. So I am so excited to introduce somebody who I've become very close with, I would say, the past couple of months, Dr. Azeeza Jalaludeen, and I'm still learning her. We always just call each other sister. So this is, I think, the first day that I've actually pronounced your last name. So absolutely, it's so wonderful to have you here. And Dr. Azeeza is the founder and chief mentor of the GoGlobal Business School, which I'm so excited to know more about. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today. But first, I just want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and welcome you to my YouTube channel, and go ahead and get into our conversation. Welcome, Azeeza.
Thank you so much, Sharon, my sister. It's really wonderful to be on the show as we meet every week, and also meet almost every other day. We're pinging here, we're talking together. And I'm very excited to be on the channel, and welcome to everyone. This is wonderful to share this space with a woman that is so close to my heart. Like what you said, few months only, but as if, we've known each other for all our lifetime. And I thank you for reaching out and constantly being there with me in this journey as well, and consciously growing. Our organization, for me, my journey has been very much in the transformation space since 2002. So I evolved my work from being a learner, of course, I'm always a learner, into training and coaching. And I jumped into conscious transformation leadership work since 2002, where I started working on myself to understand, the deep work that you need to work on yourself to grow your business, your life. And that kind of evolved from a sole proprietor, trainer, coach, to partnership business, to a private limited business. Right now, my company, GoGlobal Business School, is the education arm of my holding company, which is, with Almighty's grace, a company that is set up as a pre-IPO company to go for a listing at $500 million market cap with Almighty's grace. And this whole idea of why we do that is a very interesting conversation. We are focused on conscious capitalism as a way of uplifting humanity. So in GoGlobal Business School, which is the content provider, we focus on conscious leadership as the main point of growth for the work that we set out to do. So our ecosystem is made up of conscious leaders, conscious business, we know they are different, and conscious investment, that is the whole ecosystem that we set up. So that's about me, and I'm very happy that we are in this conversation about surviving to thriving.
Yeah, and I just also have to say that it's always so wonderful to hear more and more about what you're doing. And so I didn't know about the future IPO, and that's so exciting. And I do believe that it's done. It is done, right? But I think one of the things that has connected us is our passion on conscious leadership. And I know that we're going to be discussing that. And I think that we should probably have that conversation again another day, or maybe even weave it into the whole surviving to thriving, because it really is almost, they're in the same lane. I mean, it's just absolutely in the same lane. So, I am so excited to dive into this conversation. So we've talked about, surviving to thriving, and we've really taken it in so many different areas. But I would love to know, because, first of all, I want to say to the audience that you're in Singapore. You've been in Singapore now for how many years?
I'm born and brought up here. I don't know anywhere else. This is my home.
Yeah. So you were born and brought up there, but you've traveled internationally.
Absolutely. I traveled around, and then US is my favorite place. I hang out. My peeps are in US. I always say, so this is what I tell people, right? I'm a born Singaporean, Chinese by education, Indian and Arab by heritage, ancestral, and I'm Asian, truly Asian because I speak Bahasa and everything. And I'm an American by business transformation. So many of my work is inspired. Our work in GoGlobal is inspired by Buckminster Fuller, who is the amazing philosopher and visionary for the work of generalized principles. So our work is very much that. So I'm a Globian by heart, global citizen by heart.
Yes.
So I'm all of that and more.
Yes, 100%. I completely agree with you. Yeah. So I would love to dive into then your understanding about, what is the whole concept to you? What does it mean? What words come to mind or feelings do you have when we talk about the idea of surviving to then the transition into thriving? So
Well, for me, when we hear the word surviving, it is like the below. So if it's saying enough, sounds like surviving is enough, yet it's like that one step below enough. So surviving is always coming from the space of lack, the scarcity that we are just surviving. And it's that space that gets us to feel like a victim and not be able to do what we want to do because we have all these big dreams or visions, yet we are so limited because we're just surviving. And that's a conversation. I'm a very hardcore believer of languaging, and the words that we speak has magic and the energy to shift the way that we live in our world. So the word surviving kind of makes us lesser than who we are meant to be. So for me, the transition from survival to thriving is inspired by the work of Lynn Twist, where she talks about the power of enough and the power of it's the power of enough, not just in words, the beingness, embodying the feeling of enough, which is so crucial. And the feeling of enough, the appreciation, she always says, what you appreciate appreciates. I just love that. And, it's so powerful. So talking about that itself sends a powerful vibration to everybody that's listening in. Just breathing that in itself. So when we feel the enough in us, that is the first step to thriving. That is the first step that leads to thriving. What do you have to say about that?
Oh my.
I know you kind of like, yeah, I know that one. So please.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No, and I love the way our conversations flow. I mean, it's always so wonderful to have a conversation with you. So, for me, I love the idea of enoughness, right? It's because, when in my space, right, in therapy as well as healing and working in trauma, um, the idea of surviving and survival mode, which we then translated into a nervous system activation as well as like a physical dis-ease, right? A lot of it comes from this feeling of not being good enough, not being, the perfectionism, the chasing something to be perfection, which we know that, we are perfect in our imperfectness, right? In our imperfections. And so it's that feeling of being in lack, and not being worthy, and just always being, like you said, you kind of gave this like um, energetic line of the survival. It keeps you underneath that energetic line, right?
Yes.
And so I love the idea of enoughness, because we first have to understand where we're starting from. And so many people are starting from a place of lack. They're starting from a place of not feeling good enough. And so when we can, and we don't realize, it's just so subconscious. We don't even realize that we're moving through the world in that way. So, for instance, I'm sure you can give examples of this, but one of the examples is the person who is working so hard, right? They're working 14, 15-hour days. They don't spend time with they don't have time to spend with their families and their children. And they just continue because they feel like what they have isn't enough, right? Which then translates into who I am is not enough, right?
Yes.
So, but what do you see? Because I think that the beautiful thing that has evolved in these discussions is the fact that I'm talking with people all over the world, right? So even though you and I have had these conversations, we kind of understand that there's so many similarities. I would love to know what your examples and what you see in that concept of enoughness and not being enough, and where you're seeing that play out.
Two things came up for me when we were talking about below the line. So remind me, I'm going to talk about that, which is so important. At the same time, just now when you talk about not enough, this is the underlying, unsaid, unconscious mover and controller of our mind and our beingness.
Yes.
And it is so at cellular level because the conversation of not enough, you see most people, and you talked about, people saying not enough, so they're workaholic, they're just going after money to get more things at the expense of other stuff, not doing enough of. So that's another. So the not enough conversation starts early in the morning. I had not enough sleep, going to bed
So true.
saying I've not done enough of work today. So the not enough is so unconscious, not enough time, not enough money, not enough love, not enough who I am. I know I need to be more as a human being. So this not enough is so unconsciously ruling our life. And when we can become enough about everything that we do, and we wake up in the morning feeling gratitude and grateful that whatever, today I had 3 hours of sleep. So I'm so happy. When I woke up, I was like, yes, it's going to be an awesome day. And it's like, yeah, I was in a training. I was a little drowsy, but, I made it through. But interesting. Then we got into our call, and here we are. And I know that I am enough because I know that my conversation is very different. People will see like, Azeeza, do you sleep? I'm like, do I need to sleep? Yes, my body needs whatever it needs, and it'll take care of itself. And I just have to be present and nurture it. That's it. I don't have to feel the guilt because when we say not enough, that's where I'm going to go to the conversation. Thank God I'm like building that in, and I just love always the way it flows. So the conversation of guilt. So we have this thing called living below the line. The line being enough, and all right, below the line is all of that conversation of not enough and all of that. That's below the line conversation. I'll tell you about what's above the line, but below the line conversation leads to guilt, leads to shame, leads to ego games, it leads to judgments, leads to labeling and excuses that kind of really eats us up as a human spirit. So that's been, so I'm not speaking from outsider, I'm talking about myself. Hey, I have been through that. When I was going through what I went through in my financial challenges, in my health challenges, in my relationship challenges, you look outside and you ask, why is this person doing it to me? We drop below the line and we go into a lay blame, and this person is doing it to me.
Yes, right, which then speaks into the victim, which is what you said earlier.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then there's this justifying, I've done so much, yet I'm getting this. So you go into this victim mode of always justifying and always feeling that you've done so much and it's still not enough of what you're going to get. So you've done so much of work, yet you couldn't get what you want to get in financial success. You've given so much of love, yet you don't have enough of love from your loved ones. You cook, you feed so much of feed people, but you still don't have food on your table. So these conversations, have been going on in human space. And, right now, I think it's very apt that we discuss about this, sister.
I think it's so important. Yes.
I'm just going to say a very important thing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to advocate this thought and I want it out in the universe.
Mhm.
Not enough oxygen is the conversation in the world right now.
Mhm.
Let's everybody take a deep breath in. What are we telling ourselves? That we can't breathe? Not enough oxygen? Really? What is the world telling us? What is it? I mean, practically, people are scrambling for oxygen. Practically, really, physically. My heart is with everyone who is in that space. At the same time, what is the message for the world?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Because when we look for what the message is, and when we get into not just the flow of or the focusing on the pain points, the fears within ourselves, and we look at things as a witness, then we can actually get into the flow of the universe and of the world, right? And when we can get into the flow of the universe and of the world, then we can see things from a much different place and we get the messages that are needed, right? And I'm sure you have some thoughts on that. I don't know if you want to share.
I have. And, I'm not speaking from like what you said. I'm not speaking from outside. I'm speaking from inside.
Mm.
I have the Indian blood. I have family members in India. I have my business partners in India. I have people who are affected because of the situation. And I was literally, even being in Singapore, I was literally ground level supporting them with mobilizing a lot of things in India,
Sure.
connecting to sources. So I am with everyone, anyone who is in that space of distress and despair. Like what you said, stepping out of where we are to see what's happening and what is the higher message for all of us. The moment we can recognize it, my calling right now is to recognize the higher message, to tune in and say, yes, this is the message we're supposed to receive, and we can. And I'm taking, and so now what's the conversation I'm going to have? If it's not below the line, what's the above the line conversation?
Yes. Yeah.
Now let's get to that. Above the line conversation is about being responsible for what's showing up.
Yes.
And my shout out right now, my calling right now, I've been losing my voice in the last couple of weeks on and off. And as much as I can give a lot of physical reason, I didn't have enough sleep, I didn't take enough supplements, blah, blah, all of that. I know that there's a powerful message I need to say to the world that I'm holding back. And that's why I'm going out very loud with this stuff. And this message of being responsible for what's showing up for us in the world. And I have been through, in this COVID time, I've been through huge, deep depression times.
Mm.
And I know how it's like when you're in depression and hurting yourself and not knowing what to do and no one to call out for and feeling lonely. How many of you have been feeling that, friends?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think almost 99% of us have felt it in some level in our life that we do not have anyone to support us. We feel like we're looking for the guidance outside.
Yes.
And it is a time for us to take responsibility, to look for guidance within, to be that responsible human being, to increase our conscious leadership space. And I would love you to chime in and tell me what else you have to say about this because I really want to share about conscious leadership framework.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that. And I'm laughing because I've been with you along this entire journey of when you lost your voice. And I remember you even saying, I'm asking the universe, there's a greater and bigger reason for this. And, I just want to say a couple of anecdotal things first, which is the resonance of what you are saying and how it applies to me and my own practice and my own beliefs and just in general, how we can apply this same thing, this same concept in different ways, right? So I 100% agree with you that everything that we experience on the physical level has a much greater meaning. And you had mentioned about the below the line to above the line scenario, right? So, what in my practice, what we say is, we kind of like are in the bottom floor, right? So, picture yourself in a department store or a building, right? And you're like in the basement and it's not exactly where you want to be. Your thoughts might be a little bit dark. You really can't see everything. You don't really like being there. And so it is our job to get ourselves into a place where we are able to raise up to the seventh floor, the highest floor, right? So, um, so to go from below the line to above the line, how that translates from surviving to thriving is that when we're in the basement, right, then we're basically, in that survival mode. We're just surviving. We're just able to survive. And we experience these things. We lose our voice. We feel like we can't breathe. We have these manifestations of fear that come into our lives. We have real life challenges that are going on, right? Um, Externally, there are real life things going on, 100%. Yet we still have the capacity to ride that elevator up, right?
Yes. Yes.
Despite all of those things. And I think about that when it comes to conscious leadership. And I realize that, in my practice, there's something called leadership trauma, right? It's a little bit newer. It's not so new, but it's newer in the sense that, especially because of things with the pandemic and the lockdowns and all across the world, leaders are experiencing this future projection trauma in the now moment, in the present moment, because they are responsible in their jobs for the entire future of their corporations in the decisions that they're making now. So there's this leadership trauma that is happening that I think is very, very important for us to address, because if we don't address it, just like any other kind of traumatic experiences, it starts to grow roots, right? So I think that it's really important for on a leadership level for us to acknowledge the fact that when we're looking at another individual, right? Um, we're looking at, especially with a tremendous amount of responsibilities, we're looking at someone, and we have to realize that it's a multidimensional being, right? And they're not just the person who is here to do the job for us, XYZ, but they're actually an entire whole 360 being. And we may not have done so well in the past, historically, in especially our larger corporations. We may not have done so well. Some corporations have been exceptional, right? But even still, there's room to grow, because I think that if you were to do a poll with the individuals who worked for the companies, they would probably give a great percentage of need for improvement in certain areas, especially when it comes to feeling like they're having to survive, right? And it's that whole lack mindset. It's that whole not knowing that things are going on in the world and feeling compelled to want to be able to do something and start activating individuals and troops and movements to be able to help to address the needs of the collective, right? Um, so I think that there's just so many things that that can be done. And so I love the fact that you are relating that to yourself and you're realizing that if this is going on in me, then this is also a reflection of what is going on outside of me.
Yeah, I'll tell you a deeper level of that. I love your session on like the conversation on the different steps to go on. And I have it that is an evolving thing.
Yeah.
So we evolve up, it's a spiral effect. It's like why I say I do this is because sometimes we feel like we're back to square one. It's like you feel like it's 360 years. I thought I've been here before. Let me tell you, I started losing my voice when I was in school days, in my student council, every time we're having all these sessions. So this is leadership. Let's listen to this again, very, very consciously. To understand this, that we're not reading into things and wanting to create meanings out of it. Just that right now I'm listening. I'm saying, yeah, when was I losing my voice? I lost it so much in my childhood days, in my student council, where I was a leader. And every time we have all these orientations, I'll get so hyper and I'll be shouting and screaming and cheerleading. And then I'll lose my voice and I'm like not able to speak. So what happened then right now? And it's a very different game because when I reflect on it, as a woman, as a lady, we are told energetically not to open our mouth and not to be heard. Women are not supposed to speak very loud. The voice cannot be heard by men. Patience. This is unconsciously, subconsciously in my blood.
Yes.
Ancestral in my blood.
I was just going to say ancestral. Yeah.
So now, as I speak to you, do you know that my voice is opening up? I can feel the energy shift right now. As I speak about it, I'm owning it. I'm saying that this is the next level of growth, speaking with intention, not to, and so it's not about me losing my voice, it's my unconscious body reacting, the unconscious system reacting to what I want to speak and who I want to be to serve the world. So the intention outside is very real, but the unconscious game that's played in the cellular level is giving this body signs to say, heal out, time to go off. And this is where leadership role takes a whole new space for conscious leadership. And that's where I think I would love to touch on. Are you ready? Can I share about the 5 intelligence? And this is all about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to because it's really interesting. Your model is very similar to it's so funny, isn't it? Like how we've been working towards these things and then all of a sudden we come together and we start having these conversations and then like I know you've shared this in my clubhouse room, the Surviving to Thriving clubhouse room. And I was like, holy cow, I cannot believe this. These are all of like, I call them pillars, right? So I would love for you to share about that because I think that it is so important for us to really speak into these things. Before you do, though, I just want to acknowledge the fact that I understand what you're talking about, especially when it comes to really shifting the narrative and allowing ourselves to really step into our own power. And you and I have had this conversation before, and I've said it and you've said it, which is sometimes we just have to get over ourselves. We have to realize that get over yourself, right? Because it's not about you really. In the end, the message is yours, but it's not about you.
You're just the vessel. You're just the channel.
You're the instrument. You're the vessel. You're the channel. And so it's those subconscious aspects that get in the way energetically of what is in alignment with our true self and the capacity to be able to share that out. So it's like an energetic barrier, right, on a physical level. So so I just wanted to acknowledge that because I think that you're always so inspiring, and it's just so tremendous to hear you say that. And you are a tremendous leader, right? You're very, very powerful. And I love the fact that we get to be able to have these conversations and be very transparent because it takes away the shame.
Yes.
And we
Yes.
realize that
It's not wronging anyone.
right, exactly. And somebody needs to hear this. And so for me, I think it's really important to acknowledge the fact because we do it towards each other as well, right? Is when somebody becomes transparent about something that they might be moving through, then automatically some people who are listening start to try and level them and they try and put them underneath the energetic line again, right?
Yes.
But really, that individual is living above the line because they're
Yes.
taking away all of the shame.
Yeah. Owning up.
Owning up. Yeah. Owning up. So I had to speak into that before we moved on because it's just that's so, so powerful. It's such a powerful message. And just the fact that you're sharing what you're moving through and what you've moved through yourself is like, wow, real life examples, a living example. And so thank you. Thank you for just being here.
Thank you, because I didn't correlate this. I know I love conversations with you because every time I speak up, I know I'm speaking to myself.
Yes.
And I speak to myself, and then it's like, okay, Azeeza, what's going on? And then, and that I'm the one thing I'm so grateful about is the level of consciousness that has been gifted to me to be aware of things that is seen, and it's like the unseen that people like. For me, it's like, isn't that common sense? Like, don't you see it? And people are like, no, I don't see that. It's like, okay, but I see it this way because for me, it's been channeled that, I've been channeled, or rather wired this way to do something that is bigger than me. And I always say it's cause above self, and it's not about me. And as much as everything you talk about me feeds my ego and makes me feel so good, I'm like, thank you, but that's not what I want. I want to see how best we can serve and really get the message out there. So I think today's conversation is revolving around physical intelligence.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
No oxygen is physical intelligence. So what is our body telling us? How much can we be aware of it? So as we talk about the five intelligence in conscious leadership, it's not so I've given a left brain logic to it, like the framework, kind of like all these intelligence and everybody. I was speaking with a team from Stanford last 2 days, and I was speaking in the event, Stanford University, one of the incubation team. And I was talking about all this intelligence. They love it because, wow, these are fancy names. But the truth of the matter is, knowing the fancy name at the surface level, how much do you really get it at the in the what do you call it, in the gold mine? What you can pick up? What is the things that you can dig out and be of service? So when you look at physical intelligence, talking about body, how much do we understand our body?
Yeah.
Forget about other people's body. What do you understand about this body? That's self-healing. The cellular level healing can happen when you allow it. You don't need anything to be put into your body to make it right. That's the beauty of this.
Yes.
So how much of responsibility, let's go back to the above the line. How much of responsibility are we taking for individual bodies that we are having for ourselves?
The percentage is different for every person, right?
Yeah, and the problem, what has showed up is that's where everybody's now waking up to physical intelligence. Yet there are so many people living in denial, going out and blaming the government, blaming everything. And my heart is with them. I've decided in this couple of days and meeting up with one of the mentors who has worked with Louis Hay and Wayne Dyer.
Yeah.
He told me to drop the guard of opposition energy with anyone. So
Yeah.
I'm practicing that. So if anything, and I'm putting on the table, if you are feeling opposition energy, please allow it to heal it out. And I'm learning and I'm growing out of it. My heart is with everyone who is below the line, especially in the physical intelligence space where they are blaming the government, they're blaming the countries and coming up with new names of the various showing up, bagging into countries. And let's not talk about this physical intelligence and talk about the physical intelligence of Palestine and Israel. What's going on for there? They are perishing people. They are perishing other human beings, other physical bodies. What is the physical intelligence and understanding of that? That you would take a heart, and that will lead us to understand about environmental intelligence. That's my brother and sister in other part of the world that is getting hurt. And how much are we environmentally aware that this is a body being hurt, that's part of me that's being hurt? How much are we relating to that? And how much are we being in responsibility to shift that? We can say, oh, I'm so far away, it's nothing to do with me, I don't know what's happening. And then we can do all these judgment games of who is right and who is wrong and go into debates over it. But at the end of the day, what is the responsibility we're taking holistically to make that shift? Go ahead, sister.
Right. Sure. No, and it also just speaks into how far we can go in our own illusion of the mind to believe that, and how far we want to deny the truth and the extent that we will go in order to continue to perpetuate our own denial. Right?
Right below the line, by the way, we missed that out. That's the biggest game. That is the biggest trigger for me. And that was the biggest trigger for me, that I got rashes all over my body. And that was also, let me tell you something about that. I started off my life with rashes. My mom, and I've been healing out of it. And my mom told me, we talked over it. I was born to this world with rashes. So again, genetically, I was born with it, DNA level, and I healed out of it. I don't know what was going on, and I'm researching on that for myself. And in the recent months, and thank God for the thing, I'm having full blown rashes. I'm saying I'm having till now, and it's getting healed out as well. So physically, things are manifesting for me, not for me anymore. And I get it, and I move to tears saying it. And I know it's a service to humanity that I'm set out to do. And that's where the shifts are happening. And I can see myself healing out of it right now. Imagine the cycle. So again, like what you said, going up, it feels like you are in the same place. I got my rashes. I've lost my voice again. But no. What's next? What's next? What's next?
Right.
What's the higher level of responsibility we need to take for ourselves? And go ahead, sister, you were saying that.
Yeah, no, it all just goes back into consciousness, right? So, and everything on the physical can be healed from something that's bigger and greater than ours, right? So spiritual. But we get to use the wisdom of the physical, like you were speaking into before, to be able to help to guide us towards what really needs the most attention. You were talking about listening to your body without judgment, right? Before, when it comes to rest, giving it what it needs. And so that would also apply to this as well, right? So we must listen without judgment, because when we use without judging, right? We need to exercise some sort of judgment, but we don't want to judge and say, well, that shouldn't be like that, right? Oh, well, I just slept 8 hours and I'm still tired. I shouldn't feel that way, right? And really, it's just like, well, how about we just say, well, I guess we need what we need, right? How about we acknowledge the fact that maybe you might have been through a tremendous event, right? Would we judge someone or deny somebody who has just been through a catastrophe that's going on right now, and they finally are able to get out of it, and then they take a rest for 2 days, right? Are we going to say, well, you shouldn't need that, you shouldn't sleep for 48 hours? Well, you need what you need, right? So we can turn off that judgment, but we can look for the wisdom in that, and the wisdom is that there is just so much that is shifting, and that we get to be able to change the story that we are living in. And you spoke into it as well, that taking away the resistance, So for me, what most, a lot of people, it's not just me who calls it this way, but compassion, right? To be able to really understand that we all are different on some level, right?
Yeah.
And we don't get to choose what we differ on, but we do get to choose the level of compassion that we have for each and every individual, right? Who we are aware of. And even though they might be under the line.
Yes.
They might be under the line. Just by us seeing them, like being like, I see you, right? And when we can speak to them from that soul place,
Oh, yeah.
there is that possibility, there's the possibility for them to rise
Yes.
in,
Yes.
in their own time.
Yes. 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 Yes.
In their
Yes.
own time, right?
Yes. And the word of the other intelligence we talk about is emotional intelligence.
Yes.
This is where we're getting into how do we relate with people. And the word judgment, when you talk about it, it's so real because we are so fast at judging people that you're below the line. And most of the time, the commonly used, he is out of integrity. I mean, like, who are you to say it, by the way?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is a commonly used word. So integrity is so personal. It's so personal. It's your conversation. And that goes into spiritual intelligence, your own conversation with your own connection with your true self. So coming to the emotional intelligence, which is so crucial, communicating with people heart to heart, just being there for them
Mhm.
and showing up again and again, standing for humanity is what I learned from the Buckminster Fuller's work and my accelerated business school mentors, Carrie and Doria, on standing for humanity, no matter what happened. And I had, and again, it's my personal experience standing for me, as a homemaker and someone who didn't even know what is business. And for me, business was like taking care of my family. When I say my family, I thought India, I mean, I'm not say I thought the work that I was doing in opening India market for the transformation work, I wanted my family, like my Indian community, to
Yeah.
get this gift. And I treated business as if I would feed my children. I was scrabbling for all the money to put it into India, get the work going.
Yeah.
And I didn't treat it as a business. And I was tested with about $500,000 minus. So that's a lot of money for a homemaker to learn. So that goes into financial intelligence now. We're kind of roping it all in because conscious leadership is about evolving holistically in different areas. So coming back to the part of emotional intelligence, knowing and being there with me, standing for the growth of the community that I felt was my calling to serve. And I know that it's not just Indian, but it's global, people around the world. My mentors stood with me. They stood for me, and then they still stand with me. They know the shift needs to happen, and that's why you would see Doria, really how she takes care of me, and every time I show up in the rooms and being part of the work. So we need to stand for each other without judging and really dropping it and go into this word of, and you want to speak into this unconditional love. And what does unconditional love really mean, or does it really exist?
Mm, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's a whole other conversation because I think that, loving unconditionally, because I'm also thinking about the interpersonal violence and that kind of stuff, right? So it's not exclusive. It's not exclusive to, boundaries or no boundaries, right? So there's a much different place, and that again comes from really getting to that place of the higher mind and healing and going from having wounds to then having scars, right? And being able to operate from the scar as opposed to the wound, right? And so I believe in the infinite capacity of healing any and all things, and that has to come from love. So to get into that heart space of love is what we are all here for. Love, health, joy, right? Peace. So those are all our ultimate ways to live unconditionally,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
However, in order to really have that, right, we must provide ourselves with some energetic barriers so that we can really serve our mission, right?
Absolutely.
So, for instance, you had said, you gave the example earlier about um, wanting to serve, through, I don't know if it was a store or what the organization was that's serving people from India, right? So I don't know if it was in Singapore, but um, and so you treated it as though you were serving your family, right? And everyone is family. However, at the same time, there has to be some sort of energetic structure, right?
Which
And
I didn't.
which you didn't know because you were thinking unconditional means like I just do, give, right? And then
Yeah.
everything is going to be fine because if I'm giving, right, and I'm just doing it every day, I show up and I just go, it's going to be fine. But really, what happens when you don't have a structure, when you don't have something to hold the efforts, right, that you're providing as well as that you're receiving, right? Then it's like putting everything into a black hole.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. That requires a new level of distinction. And
Yeah.
in those moments, right, I was beating myself up for a whole year for what I did. And I withdrew and I went into like a whole game of like these people have treated me this way, all this victim mode and that kind of conversation. So then I knew when I came to the realization that the game is not there, it's here.
Yes.
And And most importantly, what you said just now was so beautiful. Love, peace, joy is innately available in us.
Yes.
And when we are looking for it outside, that's where the survival mode kicks in.
Mhm.
So when we are innately love and we are innately peace and innately joy,
Mhm.
how can we be not enough?
Right. Full
Because
circle.
everything we are doing is for that only, right?
Full circle right back into the beginning of our conversation, right? And that's beautiful. Um, because it is really realizing that we have enough and that all of the shifts and changes that are going on, yes, they are they're wreaking havoc on some individuals, right? And organizations, and things are shifting and changing. And some very significant and dire things have happened. Yet I still believe that we're enough,
Yes.
that I'm
Yes.
enough, that you're enough, that this earth that we're on is enough.
Enough. Enough.
It has more than enough infinite intelligence to serve us, and we have enough to serve ourselves and each other. Um, and so that is an amazing way to go from surviving to thriving, right? That is one way to really get ourselves into thriving. Listen, I am here for all of the abundance that the world is here that I can help to serve, right? And I know that you are as well, because the last piece I know for you is the financial, right? When it comes to the pillars, and it is as well for me with being conscious, right? You have to be able to incorporate discussion about energy exchange, which is money. And so I think it's really important to acknowledge that that's a piece of the pie and that it is okay. It's okay, right?
Absolutely, because for me, I told you from a homemaker, and I did my introduction that I'm going on a listing IPO. So imagine the kind of experiences I've gone through. And it's a constant growth because, again, it is also becoming aware the energetical deservability expansion. that needs to
Yes.
happen in me and all the experiences I need to go through to achieve that. And only because I become aware that I need to work on it consciously, then I become available and humbled to ensure this happens. We, and ever since, having gone through those learning experiences, now evolving on the business, I've raised so much of funds, and our company is now worth more, in just less than 2 years. We, in our limited company, we have shareholders who have invested in us from Singapore, Malaysia, India, Indonesia, Mauritius, and partners from US, and also right now clients from Australia, different countries. So this whole setup, the structure is evolving based on this five intelligence. So I'm just going to recap, and then I think you can round it off with talking about this intelligence in conscious leadership. And that is, we started off with spiritual intelligence, emotional intelligence. We started with physical intelligence, actually. And then we have financial intelligence and environmental intelligence. So this is so crucial. This five intelligence as conscious leaders, we need to become aware and keep evolving in these five intelligence. Nothing else. Our whole life is swirling around it. And when we can go evolve on this, I feel like that is kind of the entry to the world of modern.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you spoke to it where it's that spiral, right? It's that spiral effect. And so nothing is really linear. We our minds think that, like, I'm going to take one step and then I'm going to take the next step and I'm going to take the next step, and it's just like a line. But actually the way that it is, it's like a spiral. So we're constantly like, we're over here and we're actually gazing at ourselves on the other side, like having an experience as well. And we're working on so many different levels in a dynamic way. It's a very dynamic life that we live, and especially when we're going about it and constantly looking to grow, right? Which we're here for, because to grow is to live, and we are living, breathing human beings. So to be able to be conscious and have in the forefront of our minds all of these different aspects that we can check in with ourselves on, as well as make sure that we are putting it on the table for all other individuals with good intentionality, right? So we're actually creating intentionality. And when we create intentionality, there is safety in the conversations, right? And that safety takes us from fear, worry, all of the historical past experiences that we might have had in a business kind of a situation. We all have some at some point, right? When we get to be leaders. And so we get to create that foundational safety where we can really fully be present. And when we're present, then we can be conscious. We can be 100% conscious. And when we're conscious, we are no longer just surviving. We have the capacity to thrive.
All of us, for sure.
All of us. All of us. Yeah. So